All right, it is the top of the hour, so welcome everyone. Whoopsie. Welcome everyone to today's webinar session where we will learn the basics of Bluebeam Revu for takeoff and estimations. My name is Lillian Magallanes, and I've been with Bluebeam since 2013. Before joining the team, I used to serve in the capacity of a BIM coordinator, and today I get to be a senior industry specialist working with a lot of you guys in finding workflow solutions. With me on this webinar, I have Nick Decker, who is also logging in from our Chicago office, and he will be the person answering all your Q&A questions that you would be typing in during the duration of this webinar. Okay, so a little bit about us. If you're new to this webinar, you never attended a webinar from us, or if you downloaded a trial or review, let me talk about who we are. So for the past 15 years, Bluebeam has been developing innovative PDF solutions that enable technical professionals like you to share information and collaborate digitally. So over the years, we've become an industry leader in digital markup and collaboration workflows for the construction industry. I love my approach. I love the approach that we have as a company, not because I work here, but we really listen to our customers. We want to understand what is it that you do, and want to be able to help you do the things you do better. So our development of products has been really tied into this philosophy from the very beginning. Our first product was a PDF creation tool, which was developed in direct response to the needs of a group of engineers for JPL. They needed to be able to share rich vector-based, high-quality PDFs, so they developed the CAD plugin, which was produced. So by partnering with our customers, you, in the subsequent years, we recognized the need to mark up the PDF, which drove the development of our flagship product, Revu, and eventually led to collaboration solutions such as Studio. The PDF file is more than just a static version of digital paper. Think of a PDF file as a container that houses several different forms of information. We have metadata, hyperlinks, bookmarks, file attachments, images, just to name a few. And Revu helps streamline the process throughout the entire project lifecycle. So by viewing, editing, and sharing documents quickly to other project team members helps keeps the projects moving forward with less idle time waiting around. So here's what we're going to talk about today. So this is what our agenda looks like. So we're going to dive into our markups and measurement tools. I'm going to highlight a feature that was introduced with Revu 2017, which is our dynamic fill. I'm going to talk about customizing and sharing tool sets, and then also talk about the markups list, and also highlight a second feature that was introduced for Revu 2017, that being the quantity link. So before I really do a deep dive, I kind of want to talk about these three phases of approach that I'm going to talk about in this webinar. So the first phase will be the setup. That's going to talk about the interface, the calibration, the custom tools, and the layers. The second phase will be the takeoff, which will incorporate the measurement tools, tool sets, tips, and tricks. And then the final phase will be the markups list and the quantity links. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into Revu 2017. So let me go ahead and toggle over into Revu's interface. But first, let me give you an introduction of what you have in front of you, being that this is a basic course, and for those of you who are just getting started with Revu. So one of the things you probably noticed, and one of the things that for me, when I started using Revu, I think 6 years ago, I was definitely overwhelmed by the interface. And then I discovered this feature called profiles. And what profiles are, it allows me to customize the interface according to how I'm going to work. So for example, you probably immediately see some of our measurement suites in front of the interface. So when I take my cursor and go over to the menu, the view menu, again, you can see the command bar that changes according to the menu topic. But when I hover over the profile manager, which is the man with the white bow tie and the blue sweater, By clicking on the drop-down arrow, I have a list of profiles that come out of the box through Review that I can choose from. So hopefully you notice that I am currently in the Takeoff profile. If I were to switch over to the Design Review profile, you can see that my interface has changed according to the Design Review profile. So what that means is I have tool sets located on the left side of my screen that are specifically for a Design Review workflow. And I also have some quick tools that are docked on the right side of my screen for easy and quick access. Now, when I jump back into my Takeoff profile, again, you can see that it's reconfiguring itself. And those tool sets that you saw a second ago are now specifically in relation to my measurement suite. But let's take a peek at the tool chest, which I'm going to talk a little bit further in this webinar. And you can see that those tool sets are very different than I had for the Design Review. So again, Profiles is a really great feature to leverage in Review where you can really customize the interface according to your workflow. Another great benefit is that you can create profiles and share them among your team members to really create a standardized, uniform environment. All right, so in front of you, I have a document, a drawing sheet that has tons of markups in front of you. So our goal today is to get you familiarized with some of the fundamentals with our measurement suite so you can really start to achieve what you see in front of you. But the first golden rule to an estimation and takeoff workflow is to always calibrate your sheet. So always calibrate. It's the first step to do. So in front of you, I have a drawing sheet A1.1.1, and it's not calibrated, but when I zoom in at the bottom right of my screen, I have a scale in front of me. So the scale for this drawing sheet is 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot. Now there are two ways that I can go ahead and calibrate my sheet or my set of drawings. So I can either do it by selecting two known points and typing in that specific dimension into Review, or I can go ahead and manually enter that information in the measurements panel. So let me show you those two methods first. So, and before I get into that, I also want to address the fact that there are several different ways to get to a specific tool. And not to overwhelm you, but I just want to show you where they are. So because I am in my Takeoff profile, I have a lot of these measurement tools already docked on the right side of my screen. Now another way to get to them is by clicking on the Measure menu item located at the very top, and then again you'll see that the command bar will go ahead and display my entire measurement suite. So that's two ways to get to that. And the third way is by clicking on the tab axis, where it's going to give me this context menu where I can go ahead and select measurements from the list of items, and that's going to go ahead and open up a panel in front of you. So whatever way, as you start to explore and really dig into the features of Review, you'll probably find what's more comfortable either by, pinning it to a toolbar, having it up there on the command bar, or opening your panel in your screen. Now, for the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to always go into the tab axis to go ahead and access the measurement panel. So this way we stay on one consistent note and not to confuse you where I'm grabbing these tools from. All right, so I went ahead and now I have my measurement panel open, and the calibration is actually under the very top part of this panel, which is the scale portion of this panel. Now, I did mention there's two methods, and I'm going to show you how to select two known points and enter the dimension. So when I click on Calibrate, which is located towards the very bottom of this section, I'm going to get a message. So Review is telling me to select 2 points to use the measurement tool. If I don't want to see this message again, simply check that box off and that would go away. So I'm going to say OK. And now you notice that my cursor now has a very small crosshair. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom out of my documents, and I can either find an area where it has known dimensions. In this case, you probably notice that I have no dimensions, or maybe I have a couple down here, but I can go ahead and click on this endpoint and then click to the second endpoint. But before I do that, I want to explain a couple of things that's happening here. If you happen to follow along with me and you kind of have a second monitor and you kind of want to follow along, that's awesome. But you probably have a PDF document that's open and it's not snapping exactly how it is on your screen. And that's probably because you're working with a scanned document. So there are two types of PDF documents out there. We have a vector PDF and a rasterized PDF. Now, a vector PDF tends to be a document that comes native out of its original application. A scanned document, like I said, it's a scanned document and you convert it into PDF. You'll notice that when working with a vector PDF, you're able to snap into those endpoints fairly easily, as well as being able to zoom in without losing the image quality. In this case, we see this tick line, it doesn't get depixelated. It's still very nice and clear and clean. If this was a scan document, you'll start to notice all of those pixelations in this area. So there's certainly an advantage with working with vector-based PDF versus a rasterized PDF. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot not work with a scanned document. It just means that there are some of the features in Revu that you will not fully be able to take advantage of. Now, I would like to share my first tip in this webinar, and that's using the crosshair functionality. Now, I'm a CAD user and Revit user by nature, so for me, being able to use a crosshair on my screen really helps me know where I'm going and what items are being aligned. So in order to get that, so if you're taking notes, write down the first tip of today, and if I go over to the right top section of my screen, and if I click on that drop-down arrow next to the letter R, in here I have the option to show my full screen crosshairs. Now, when I come into my drawing screen, you'll see those full screen crosshairs turn on. Now, I love this because I can easily know that I'm aligning from one end to the other. So in this case, let's say I wanted to do a calibration from the specific door opening. So rather than trying to guess from one end to another, I can go ahead and know that it's perfectly aligned in this section. So I'm going to go ahead and just click, and then you'll see those dashed lines, and then I can go ahead and you can see how nicely Revu is trying to snap on to the second tick point. Now, as soon as I clicked on the other end, I have a calibration window that pops up, and I can go ahead and enter 6 feet by 6 inches. And if I tab over in my keyboard, I can go ahead and change the unit. So by default, it's set as feet and inches, but I can always set that to be other units within the drop-down list. Now, another thing I want to mention is there's an option, and this is actually new to Revu 2017. So if you're following along with an older version, you may not see this on your screen. But if I'm working with, if I'm trying to do an estimation and takeoff within a multi-page PDF document, in this case, I just have a single sheet open, and I know that the scale is going to be standard across from the entire set, I can have Revu apply the scale all across my entire documents without me having to set the scale on every single sheet individually. Now, there is the option to go ahead and add different viewports with different dimensions, especially with those documents that have either exploded views or you're looking at a detailed sheet. So you just know that that is an option. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and enable that just so you know what that looks like. In this case, as I mentioned, it's just a single sheet, so there's no harm done here. So when I click OK, Revu is going to go ahead and apply that scale. And I can go ahead and quickly grab my length measurement, and let me verify that over. Now, I do want to share a second tip with you today. So if you're taking notes, this is the second tip. I can use the Shift keyboard on, if I click on the Shift keyboard, that's going to help me really create a straight line. So when I do that, it gives me a nice straight line from one end to the other. So looks like everything is good here. Our sheet has been calibrated, and now I'm ready to go ahead and grab other measurement tools that I can work with. Now, I did say there's 2 ways to do this, so let me go ahead and undo what I've just done. And let me talk through the second method. And again, this is going to be preference on how you want to set this up. So the second method is having this measurement panel open. And then by coming into the scale area, I can simply type in 1/8 of an inch and then tab over and say equals 1 foot. Now, if you notice, I enter the scale as a fraction, but once I tab over, Revu is going to go ahead and convert that into a decimal. Something that I really like, so I don't have to kind of, pause for a second, grab my calculator or pen and pencil and try to figure out what exactly is the decimal point. So I really love that. So I'm going to tab over and say 1 feet, and we're done. That's it. So those are the 2 methods to go ahead and calibrate your sheet. All right, so the next thing I'm going to dive into is really talking about the measurement markups. I'm going to really kind of take this from an overview level to get you familiarized about those measurement markups. So I'm going to talk about the length markup, area, and the poly length, and the count. So let's get started with that. So let me go ahead and start off with the length markup, and let me zoom into this specific room. So the length markup can it's the first measurement markup in our measurement suite. So when I click that on, don't forget my sheet's already calibrated. And now I still have the crosshairs turned on. Again, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off just in case it's a little bit too busy for your screen. So having my length measurement turned on, I know that it's turned on because I can see that little ruler, so I'm definitely within that measurement. So I'm going to click on this endpoint and then go to the second endpoint. Don't forget the shift key that I showed you. And now I can go from one end to the other. So this is 10 feet, 7 inches. If I want to go ahead and continue to take measurements for the rest of the room, I can go ahead and do that. But first, let me show you some of the cool things we can do with this specific markup. So I'm going to hit Escape to exit out of the length measurement markup mode, and I'm going to reselect it again. And now I want to go ahead and open up the Properties panel. So I'm going to navigate back up to the tab axis, which is that upside down orange triangle, and then come down to the Properties to open up the Properties panel. Now in the Properties panel, I can go ahead and change the appearance. So I can perhaps I don't want this markup to be red, I want that to be blue, and I also want the fill to match that same blue. I can always change the text color. So if we want that color to be, let's say, green, I can go ahead and change that. So as you can see, there are tons of appearance combinations that I can change according to what I want to see. Also, we can change the line styles and the end types. If you're not happy with these default arrows, we can, make them look like those. We can go ahead and make them look like those tick endpoints, like I showed you earlier. Now, another cool thing I love to show people, so let's jot this down as tip number 3 for the day. So let's say you're working, you're doing a length measurement, and the content of the drawing is a little bit busy, or maybe perhaps the space is a little bit small. So what we can do here is, again, we can hold down that shift key, and we can pull away that number, and Revu will automatically create a tick line, a leader line for this. So anywhere I move this number, it will automatically create that leader line for me. So I really love that, especially when you're trying to do a length measurement in a very, very small room, or perhaps there's a lot of content in the background and you don't want to make it look very busy. You can go ahead and control that. Now, the other thing is you have options in the appearance section to show the caption, not show the caption, so you have some options that you can go ahead and explore. Now, let me go ahead and next talk about the area measurement. And in the area measurement, so again, I'm going to come back into the measurement panel, and then grab the area measurement tool. Now, one of the things I love to make sure new users know is there's two ways to place an area measurement. So I always find that, the click and drag mode is always a huge time saver for our users. So in this case, this is very much a square type of room, so it's very easy. But if I come over to the very top left corner of my room and I click and hold my mouse, and I'm going to drag that to the bottom right, Revu is going to go ahead and give me the area square measurement of 87.3 square foot. Now I have a 0.3 in there, and that's because the precision for this specific calibration is set at 1/2. But if I want to have the precision set at 1, you can see that Revu is going to round that up for me. So if you can just know that you can change the precision on your end, whatever you want that to reflect, depending on the material you're trying to take off for. Now again, coming back into the properties panel, I can go ahead and change the appearance properties just like I did with the length measurement tool. In this case, for area measurements, I like to have a hatch pattern in there. So it really starts to add some texture into my area measurement. And sometimes we don't want the hatch pattern to be too strong. So there's always the options to go ahead and reduce the opacity percentage. And we can always add a different fill color. Now this is tip number 4 that I want to show you. And in the appearance section, especially for the area measurements, I really like this highlight option. And what that does is really makes the content that's underneath the drawing come through really nice and clear instead of just kind of putting an opacity percentage over the document. So what I mean by that is we just go ahead and take this area measurement over to this text here. If I turn that off, you can see that I'm not able to read the content underneath, but when I turn on the highlight function, you can see that I can see that very nice and clear. I can see exactly what information is being displayed in my drawing. So I really like the highlight functions. I don't see a lot of users take advantage of that very often. Now the other thing in the area measurement is I talked about how we can do a click and drag, but I want to show you if you're working with a room that's not very square. Let me just go into this particular lobby where I have a couple of angles to work with, and I have sort of an angle, a wall that is a very unique angle. So again, I'm going to grab that area measurement tool, and I'm going to click around this entire room. So instead of doing a click and drag, I'm going to click on the first corner and then let go of my mouse, and then now I can go ahead and start to click around this specific room. And as I'm doing this, I have the ability to zoom in and zoom out while still staying in that area measurement mode. So that gives you a really nice flexibility. And if you're like me, I really like to zoom in and really know exactly what I need to click through. Now this is going to be tip number 5 for the day. As I'm getting closer to the very beginning of this area measurement, I can hit enter on my keyboard, and Revu is going to automatically close that gap for me. And now I have an area square footage of 311 square feet for this specific room. And as you can see, I was able to get a really nice definition of this room. Now the next tool I want to talk through is the poly lens tool, which has actually become one of my favorites. And let me come back into this room and let me grab the poly lens tool. And that's going to be next to the area measurement tool. And again, similar to what I did with the area measurement, in this case, what the poly lens tool lets me do, it allows me to have a continuous measurement for one room. So the first measurement I showed you was the length measurement. If you notice, I was able to go from A to B, and that was it. The poly lens tool is going to allow me to go all around the entire room and it will also give me a specific measurements for each section of the wall. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to start from this corner, wrap around, and as you can see, Revu is already giving me a preview of the running length and also the length of that specific wall. So here we can see that it's 10 feet 7 inches because we know this because we did this before. and I'm going to continue around until I get to this opening here. And now I have Revu gives me measurements for each one of the walls, and it also gives me a running total of 33 feet and 2 inches. Now, you're probably looking at your screen, you're probably doing either a right stretch or a left stretch on your neck. That was intentional, but there's a way we can go ahead and make all of the text information horizontal. So let me go ahead and escape out of this poly-length measurement mode. I came back and selected the specific markup, and now again I'm going to navigate into the properties panel. And in the appearance section, there is an option where I can align the information to be horizontal. So everything is now in a horizontal level where I'm able to read this. And again, I'm going to hold down that shift key, and where it says 33 feet 2 inches, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this specific control point and go ahead and change the alignment of this running total so I can see that. Now, hopefully this seems really cool, but the second thing I like about the polylines tool is I'm able to split out measurements. So let's say I want this particular section 2 feet 8 inches to break away from the rest of the measurements. I can do so, but the trick to this is I want to make sure that my cursor is right in the middle of that section. So this way, when I right click in the context menu, I can go ahead and select split from the context menu. So when I say split, already you can see that Revu is actually went ahead and split that away from the rest of the measurements that I just take. Now let me go ahead and undo that. And now let's say that the other option you have, and let's say I want to go ahead and split every single wall. I just wanted to have its own individual measurements. I also have that as an option in Revu. So every single wall is now a stand-alone measurement. So I'm going to pull them apart so you can visually see that on your end. So that's one of my favorite things to do for the poly length. All right, and the last measurement tool I want to give you an overview for is our count tool. Now, our count tool, let's say I want to go ahead and count the different types of windows that I have here. So coming back into my measurement panel, if you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, that is your count tool. So when I click that, I can go ahead and start to click on each window. So I can either do it on the window itself, or I can just do it on the window symbol. So I like the window symbol because it keeps things nice and clean and it doesn't start to over clutter my drawing. Again, that is going to be preference on your end depending on the types of documents you're working with and the type of estimation and takeoff you are doing. So here I'm going to go ahead and just click through each one of those window symbols, and I know that it's 4. But the markups list below is also keeping a record of every single count that I'm taking. So in the markups list, let me go ahead and expand this markups list. And you can see that Revu has a total count of 4, which is exactly what I have here in front of you. Now, I did exit out of the count mode, but if I am able to locate other windows that have the similar window type, and I also want to include them into that specific count. So here I have 2 windows over here that I want to include them into my count. I can do something really easy by just right-clicking on that count, and in the context menu I have an option where it says resume count. So I'm going to select resume count, zoom out and navigate to the section of my drawing, and then include these 2 windows as part of my count. When I hit escape, the number of windows recorded in the markups list has been updated from 4 to 6 dynamically. So that is our window functionality. All right, so the next thing I want to cover, so I kind of went over our measurement suite sort of as an overview level. So hopefully you have some tips that you learned today. But I want to talk about dynamic fill, which is one of our feature, new things that was introduced in Review 2017. So let me come into, let's continue using this one particular room as an example. Let's keep things small and then work our way up. So what dynamic fill does is it really speeds up the process of being able to apply various measurements by just one swoop. So when I enable the dynamic fill, which is again located in the measurement suite, when I turn that on, I give it a second, you're going to see sort of a hover bar appear within my drawing. So the hover bar allows me to do a couple more extra things in here. So dynamic fill is, so in this case, well, first thing we want to do is we want to set parameters. So essentially we're going to drop this bucket icon you see in there, and we're going to tell Review the parameters of what we want measured. What's a webinar without any technical difficulties, right? All right, so back to dynamic fill. So first thing I did was I defined my parameters. So I went ahead and closed that opening of this room. Next, I grabbed the bucket and I kind of, went ahead and tell Review exactly the area that I want Review to measure. Now, the great thing about dynamic fill is that I can apply multiple measurements to this specific area. So one of the things that we've done so far is I can go ahead and apply an area measurement. So I can actually access those area measurement tools from markups that I've created into my tool set. So I did use my default one. I'm going to stick to that for now. But I can also apply a poly lens tool. So let me grab that as well. And I can even apply a volume if I so desired. And I can even add a polygon measurement and even a space. So for now, I'm just going to show you that I can apply the area measurement and the poly lens tool with just one swoop. So once I hit apply, you can see that Review has given me the area measurement as well as the poly lens tool measurement in one. A little bit too much. There's a lot of information happening in here, but I wanted to kind of just show you and kind of flex what Review can do. So again, let me just go ahead and run that through one more time in case you missed it due to the technical difficulties. But again, let me go ahead and define that room. So I'm going to go ahead and close this gap and grab my bucket and start to fill in the room where I want Review to go ahead and do measurements. Perfect. And let me just clean that up. There you go. And then I can go ahead, in this case, I won't apply the poly lens tool, but I'm going to grab an area measurement from my general measurements tool set, and I can go ahead and have that apply here and click apply to go ahead and finish. So in this case, we have flooring set as for ceiling and for glazing. My total square footage is 84.8 square feet. And it also gets recorded in the markups list below, which you can see nicely at the very bottom. All right. All right, so I started talking a little bit more about the tool sets, and I'm going to dive into that just now. Somebody's audio is coming through, yeah. So the tool set is, as I kind of talked about it at the very beginning, the tool chest allows me to save markups in a tool set where I can reuse them over and over again. As I mentioned in my slide earlier, let me go back to one slide. As I mentioned in the slide earlier, there's always a setup process to really create those tool sets and those custom columns in our profiles. And once we have that set up, it makes it a whole lot easier on the job to go ahead and quickly dive into the estimation side. A lot of what I covered up until this point really just talks about the setup, and I really wanted you to have sort of an overview of what the power of those tools really have. So let me come back into Review and then just kind of talk about the tool sets here. So in this particular profile, I have a general measurements tool set, I have electrical tool sets, I also have mechanical, concrete, interior finishes, and some fire life safety tool set that has some of my symbols in here. A couple things I want to show you from an introduction point of level is I can always have my tool set displayed either a detail mode or a symbol mode. Now, I like the symbol mode if I'm working in a design review workflow or I'm reviewing a document because I can kind of visually see those icons. But when it comes with working with a takeoff and estimation workflow, I like to have a list of those tool sets to be displayed. And the reason that is because I can add more information into my measurement tools. So for example, this first one here is my length measurement, but it has a label of framing, steel, grid, or lines. Grid lines. The second one has a label of piping, ducting, and conduit. So I can really start to use that specific polyline tool for any type of piping or ducting takeoff that I need to do. So I can really start to identify and add more metadata into those markups that's going to help me filter through that information in the markups list. Now, same thing for my mechanical tool set. I have a really nice subject name called round ducking, and the label is set at 12 inches, and then I can kind of see exactly which tool set I need to grab. So rather than just having default names, which is this example here, I can really start to get very specific into the metadata that I'm incorporating. Now, the other thing I like to recommend as a best practice for this workflow is to add your markups into a layer. Now, it becomes very handy, especially if you're doing an mechanical estimation, and maybe perhaps you may have markups or they need to overlap on top of each other. Having the layers helps you keep that information organized. Now, what I mean by that is, let me go into this specific area square footage that I created, and when I right click on the markup and I have this context menu that pops up, I can go ahead and assign it to a layer. So for right now, it's not assigned to a layer, but if I add it to the existing layer, which is flooring, so let's do that. And when I come into my tab axis and open up the layers panel, when I turn that off, you can see that markup disappear and reappear. And even though that markup may be visually hidden at the moment, I can't see it, it's still being recorded in the markups list. So you're not losing that information in the markups list, you're just visually not being able to see it in your drawing. And this is a really great way to keep your markups organized, especially when it comes into the estimation and takeoff workflow. Now, going back into my tool set, I talked about having it in list mode. Another great thing I like to show is the drawing mode versus property mode. Now, right now, you can see it as I double click, you can see that it is in properties mode. So what that means is it comes in exactly how I saved it into the tool set. So this is really great if you're working with specific items that are going to be the same measurement over and over. It's really great to bring that into your properties mode. But when I double click again, specifically on that icon, I can go ahead and bring that into a drawing mode. So in this case, I want to do a polyline measurement for conduit. So I can go ahead and start to take this off. I'm going to use that shift key to create a straight line. And let's say the conduit needs to run like so, as an example. And I can go ahead and, with the drawing mode, I have that free flow to go ahead and draw that markup however I need to replace. Now, in this case, I don't have to go through the process of having to change the appearance properties and subject information so it gets recorded properly. This is the beauty about having your markups, sort of done at the setup phase, and then saving them into a tool set and sharing them with other team members so you can go ahead and just dive right into this workflow on the next project coming around. All right. Now let's go ahead and jump into this particular sheet that I started with at the very beginning, because I really want to dive into the markups list that I have below. Now, I've been kind of talking about this several times throughout this webinar and talking through how Revu keeps a record of every single markup and comment that gets placed in a PDF document. So in this particular finished product, I have every single markup being recorded down below. And the advantage of the markups list is I can really start to sort and filter through this information. So let's say I want to turn on my filter and I want to know the exterior finish. Now, I should tell you that this document has 3 drawing sheets in there. So the exterior finish, when I select that item in the markups list, it quickly navigates me to where that markup is placed in my multi-PDF document. If it was one single document, it will still point to it. But this is really great when you are sort of working within multi-page PDF and you have tons of markups happening, and you just want to select that line item. Revu will navigate you to that page. So here I have an area measurement for the exterior finish for this particular airport project. Now I can go ahead and turn off that filter, so I can click on that trash can to clear my filters, and now I can go ahead and select another subject name that I want to choose from. So let's say I want to look at my door counts. Now when I click through each line item, you can see that it takes me through the various door types that I've taken account for. Also, if those counts happen to be on a different drawing sheet, again, Revu will navigate me to that specific page. Now, in the markups list below, I can always change the display order of the column. So in this case, I have a couple of columns in here that I really don't need. So for example, I don't have any markups that need to have the rise and drop show. I also don't have any slopes, and I don't have a legend. So I'm going to go ahead and hide these columns by clicking on the drop down arrow, and I'm going to go ahead and disable those columns. So the columns I mentioned was the legend, rise and drop, slope, and I think that's about it. I think that looks good. So you can see that Revu is quickly hiding those columns from the markups list. Now, if I want the order to be different, I can always click on the blue cogwheel next to the word where it says columns. And in the first tab, it says display order. Let's say I want the author to be the very first column displayed. So I can select it and use the up arrow or the down, and I can go ahead and quickly change the display of the columns. Now, it hasn't happened dynamically in the background, but when I click OK, Revu will go ahead and make the changes as I select it. So now my first column is the author column instead of the subject column. So that gives you really great flexibility to display the information you want to see. Now, you're probably wondering, you probably saw that I have another tab in here called custom columns. And now Revu does give you the ability to create your own custom column. This is really going to be great when you want to create formula columns or you want to create choice columns. In this example, I have a material column where I can choose from different types of materials. And then I also have a formula column very similar to Excel, where I'm taking expression names from 2 columns and either adding, subtracting, or multiplying to give me a total of those columns that I'm having Revu look at. All right, now I'm not going to dig into custom columns. That's more in an advanced feature that we will talk through. So be sure to look out for the Takeoff and Estimation Advanced course to really dig into the custom columns. All right, now the 2 more things that I want to cover is creating a PDF report. Now I have great measurements that I've added into this PDF document, but I want to go ahead and create a report out of this. So there are a couple options that I can generate this report with. So again, having that markups list open. And by the way, if you're trying to follow along and you can't seem to get that bottom panel open, I also want to point out that by going into the tab axis, you can go ahead and open up the markups list, and that should quickly prop open for you. Okay, so in the markups list, there is a section here called Summary. Now, when I click on that drop-down arrow, I have a couple options to choose from. I can take every information that's been recorded and put that into a CSV file. I can put this into an XML file format, PDF. I can print the summary. Or if I use the capture feature, which allows us to embed photos into a markup, I can just run a capture summary report. In this example, we do not have any images embedded into any of the markups, so we won't be talking about that. So the first thing I want to show you is the CSV summary report. So once I have that selected, I can either make it, page specific, so I can select a page range. In this case, I'm going to select just page 1, so it doesn't take an awfully long time to process this through in a webinar. And I have a couple options that I can enable or disable. So for right now, I'm going to stick to the default options and quickly place this into my desktop. And then what's going to happen is Revu is going to take all of that raw information that you see in the markups list and put it into an Excel sheet. So I already had Excel open. So here you see all the information that I just grabbed. So this is really great, especially if you need to repurpose the data. One of the things I've seen some of our customers use is there's another application or another estimation application, especially for still, if you want to just take the CSV file and then just go ahead and feed it into that other application, that works great. If you want to go ahead and take this information and format it differently, maybe perhaps you have some columns in your estimation templates that you want to add, you can quickly do that in Excel. So I've seen a couple of various uses of the CSV file format, which allows you more flexibility to do something with this data. Now the other option is to create more of a visual report, which is your PDF summary. And again, I'm going to make sure that we're only looking at page 1, so it doesn't create a very long report for us. And there is the option to append it to the current PDF, which we'll do here. And I can create hyperlinks. I'm going to show you what that does for us in the summary report. And I'm going to name this report. So I'm going to name this one Material Takeoff, and click OK. And now it's going to create a PDF summary report for us. So all those markups, measurement markups that I place, Revu is going to create a thumbnail preview of those markups, and then any information that I've chose to have visible in the markups list, it's going to attach it to that thumbnail. So I'm able to see who the author is, what is the subject of the markup, what is the area square footage, what is the count, whatever that measurement markup is set up to. I will be able to see that in the PDF report, just like you saw in the CSV file format, but it's going to be formatted a little bit different, specifically just for a PDF. Now let me open up the thumbnail so you can see that I did append it to the drawings. So generated a couple of reports for me. Now again, you can see that in this particular markup, I have a carpet measurement, which is tells me that it's tells me exactly the square footage. It gives me all the information that's displayed into that's in the markups list. Now I mentioned hyperlinks. So what Revu does is for each thumbnail or for each line item in the PDF summary, it creates a hyperlink back to the actual drawing. So in this case, I have room 138 or office 138, and I kind of want to have a bigger picture of what's, where exactly this is located. I can click on the thumbnail and it will navigate me back to the drawing itself, where I can quickly reference additional information if I need to. So I really like this portion of the summary report. Now, so going back into the markups list, so I talked about both PDF and CSV reports. Again, I showed you the CSV file. where I can take this information and repurpose. But I want to talk about one more thing here, where I want to talk about quantity link, which is another one of our new features that was introduced with Revu 2017. So what I showed you right now is doing a takeoff, creating that summary report. You enter that information into Excel. So that was the CSV report that you saw. And then I can kind of take that information, repurpose that, extend that, and calculate pricing if I need to, reformatting. So that's kind of what I showed you at the moment. Now, what Quantity Link does, it allows you to really, eliminate a lot of the middle stuff that I showed you. So it allows you to take those takeoff quantities and directly plug them into an Excel sheet. So this is really great if you already have a formula template and you just want to plug in those numbers from the PDF files. You can do what we are calling a quantity link and you can go ahead and have that cell in Excel talk to the line item in the markups list in Revu. So as you're changing or updating that information, it will also be updated in the Excel sheet. So let me show you what that means. So let me dive back into Revu. And we've kind of done a lot of work here. So let me go into a different type of sheet to kind of break away from that architectural sheet. And let's talk about this structural sheet here. So here I have a couple of measurements for footings. And let me open up the markups list so you can see that information displayed in there. So I have all footings, and sort of the total volume for all of these footings is 164 cubic yards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an Excel sheet. So let's say that, let me go ahead and expand this a bit better. Oops, it looks like Excel is a little bit shy to show you, so it looks like it's not responding, but no problem. Let me go ahead and quickly close that and then restart that again. Hopefully it doesn't take several minutes as the message is warning me, but let's get that restarted. Let me reopen that document. And there we go. So I have sort of this bid template. Again, I'm keeping this very simple. So I want to be able to take the total footings of what I have in my PDF document and directly feed that information from Revu into Excel. So first thing I want to do, I want you to note that the name of the file is structural 104_concrete. So that's going to play a huge part into this. So in the specific cell in Excel, when I right click to get this context menu, I have the option to say quantity links. I want to create that link between both of this PDF file and Excel. So I'm going to add the file that I have here. So this is going to be this particular file name. I'm going to click OK. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of making sure that they're both talking to each other. Now, I want to get the volume measurements. It's asking me for which unit do I want to grab it for. In this case, it's the volume measurement, because if I come back into Revu, you can see that the measurement type for this has been our volume measurement tool. So I know that it's volume. Oops, let me select that again. And I know that the subject name it contains is footing. So let me come back into Revu to kind of show you the subject name is footings. So I want to make sure that both of this information is matching with each other. So I know it's a volume, and I know the subject name is footings. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK and connect these two. So if you recall earlier, I did say that the total volume for all of these footings were 164 cubic yards, and that's exactly what we see in Excel. Let me go ahead and put Revu and Excel side by side, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and just randomly add more of the volume measurements on the PDF document, and you can see that dynamically the Excel document has updated with that new volume total. All right, so hopefully you found some really great tips throughout this webinar. Hopefully, if you want more, do not worry. I have some more options for you. But some of the features that I showed you are extreme only features. So just know, if you're not sure, does Revu have this? I'm not really sure. Know that our Revu Extreme has a lot of our powerful features, such as quantity link. If you have a standard or CAD, it doesn't have that. So I just want to make you aware of the different versions that we have available. I know that this webinar, there's so much we can cover. I mean, I can really spend the entire day talking about Revu, but we have some more options for you. So this webinar is being recorded. We have tons of free training videos and additional past webinars that you can go to our website and dig through. We have some self-paced online trainings if you want to pay for some training, if you want to have some instructor-led training either on the web or on site. Be sure to send those requests to Bluebeam training at bluebeam.com, and also be sure to check out bluebeam.com/training for more information. Now, if you want to get involved into our Bluebeam user groups, it's a great way to really share with other peers some ideas or some really cool workflows, to really just come together, have some good food, and just kind of share and just kind of have some network and have a good time. I enjoy going to the LA Bug group where I get to meet a lot of you users and get to answer some really great questions and really come up with some workflow solutions. So if you want to check out if there's a bug in your area, go to bluebeam.com/communities. Now, if you're ready for the next level, if you're ready for the challenge, we have Revu for Advanced Takeoff and Estimates that's really going to dig into some of the more advanced features, and it's slated to be Tuesday, August 8th, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go to events.bluebeam.com, sign up for the next webinar. Again, I want to remind you that this webinar has been recorded and it will be posted on our website, so stay tuned for that.